Welcome to Resilient Minds, where we talk about resilience and planting the seeds of resilience in the young minds of individuals. I had the pleasure of seeing these individuals at the SCAPC conference in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. My name is Cody Martin. I'm the host of Resilient Minds podcast. Who do I have the pleasure of sitting with right now?
Absolutely. My name is Dr. Costanzo Bryant Martin. I'm the director of the Call Me Mr. program and an assistant professor of teacher education at South Carolina State University.
I'm Corey Hagans. I currently serve as a learning experience designer with Georgia State University and also a consultant with the Call Me Mr. program as an innovation specialist.
Okay, so look, before your titles, right, who are you at your core as a leader?
Before my title, as a leader, I'm servant. I believe that I've been placed on this earth with a purpose to affect positive change in the lives of our students, whether it be K through 12 or higher education. For change, you have to be a part of the system to make it.
I echo that as well. I mean, I think that for me, education's in my blood, second generation educator. And so, the importance of education and being a teacher leader, now being an instructional leader, has definitely been something that's been implanted from the beginning.
That's important, hugely important. What originally pulled you into education?
I was sharing earlier, I actually didn't know what I wanted to major in when I left high school. And for most of us in the fine arts, we go into music education, art education because we love our contents. But when I got into the school system as an elementary teacher, then a middle school teacher and an assistant at the high school, you have to have the love for children to be successful. And so I've taken that same love throughout my career.
My path was very interesting. I knew very early on in middle school I wanted to be a music educator. That's how we ended up meeting, was through music. And so I knew that very early on. And my mother is also an educator as well. And so that was, again, something that was very pivotal in that development. And I think the thing that's kept me here 10 years now, for both of us, right?
Yep.
Has just been the students and the overall experience of just making sure that we are impacting someone else besides us.
When you hear the word resilience, right, what does it actually look like in students? Not in theory, but in real life.
Resilience looks like students not giving up, them not being a product of their circumstances, but a product of their decisions. And I've seen throughout my experiences, P through 16, that all students at some point go through some type of challenges or adversities, but it looks like them grinding on a day-to-day basis. As misters, them knowing their purpose, that they have to be change agents in the classroom, that when it comes to practice certification exams, that even if you don't pass it, like myself, it took me 4 times, you keep going, you find a partner, you find someone who can elevate you and take you to that next level.
The thing to add to that is understanding that you're not perfect. And understanding that, when you have moments in which you don't meet the metric that you want to meet, you know how to then get back up and try to hit that mark again.
I love it. What do adults often get wrong about young people and how they handle stress?
It's very interesting. I think that the notion is that young people, they don't really have a lot to be stressed about. But I think that context is very important. If we look at how life was 10 years ago, 20 years ago versus how it is now, young people are dealing with a lot more things that we probably didn't have to grow up with. And so not only are they dealing with it, but it then gets amplified through social media. And so it's just, I think if people really understood that component of it more, that it would help them understand how students function and how they naturally deal with adversity and situations.
To piggyback off of Mr. Hagans, today's students are different. So the things that we would say would stress us are not necessarily the things that they would say themselves. But one thing that I've learned is that we have to seek understanding before being understood, and understanding the stresses of students, helps them or helps us to allow them to create those coping mechanisms that they can use to alleviate those issues.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So what's the hardest part of leading students and staff right now that people outside of education don't see?
I think we hear about it, but it's different being in the classroom and actually, dealing with students who come with trauma or come with, not necessarily the right expectations or mindsets to be successful.
So I don't think people realize the level of stress that comes with being responsible for someone else's child. When, you get into a classroom for the first time, that's your first experience being the person in charge. It's different when you're a student. It's different when you're a student teacher. But when you're the teacher of record, when you're the instructor of record, it's challenging because now everybody's looking at you and your life, or their lives, are literally in your hands.
That's true. That's a lot of pressure, you think? Was there a moment in your leadership journey that changed how you view mental health or resilience?
I think for me, it was being a student myself. So as a teacher, I was actively working on my master's, actively working on my doctorate, and I encountered my own mental health challenges as a doctoral student. So I encountered a lot of panic attacks, just to be honest, from being so split and divided with such a large amount of death. And so it just gave me a lot of understanding to focus on my mental health, but not only my mental health, the mental health of our staff, of our faculty, of our students, because when they're feeling well, they're going to have that same reciprocity to their students, and it's going to be vice versa.
So for me, I kind of saw it a little bit differently. I had an opportunity to be on a part of a leadership team with Atlanta Public Schools at the school that I was working at, and being able to be at the table with administrators, starting to understand more about what teachers are going through, not professionally, but also personally. It made me see different perspectives. It made me understand that, although, yes, we are here to educate, we are here to, be that for the students. If we're not pouring into those people, they can't pour into the students. And so you have to have that.
The responses that I'm receiving for y'all is resonating with me so much. I'm damn near getting emotional a little bit because you mentioned earlier about, I want to make sure I heard you right, experiencing mental health issues in terms of grief and dealing with death, which I live in that space. There's a lot of people out there that's dealing with grief, right? Don't know how to cope with grief and don't know or even recognize what it's doing to them, personally and to those around them. Have you dealt with the grief that you are dealing with?
To be honest with you and just 100% transparent, I don't think I have. I think that I've identified in my life that it's an area of improvement that I need. And I think even for myself, I need to work through healing myself, healing those wounds that you can, finally have peace with, what you've been going through.
I just want to encourage you to take the first step in that journey because it's going to elevate you even further than what you're already doing. I'm seeing what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? I'm seeing that you're great. As I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself too, because it's things that, even as a therapist, I don't feel like I've dealt with, I had such great loss. I don't feel like I've dealt with it in the way that I've needed to and need to continue doing. So I just kind of I ain't want to breeze over that.
Right.
I wanted to stay right there because as men, we kind of suffer in silence a lot. And it don't do us no good, man. It affect all type of relationships.
Right, it does.
Health-wise, it affects us. So we gotta be mindful of those things so that we can continue moving forward in a way and be the best that we could be, so that we can help guide others to be the best that they can be.
I promise you, we were just talking about this exact same thing because we framed it from the perspective of why do Black men not cry? Some of the sisters, we can't cry, grew up, mama said don't cry, dad said don't cry, we gotta be tough. And it's like, I told them it's a time and a place. We have to have that level of just like release from whatever the trauma, the stress that it may be. And you might not, want to cry in front of everybody. But sometimes when it's just you, that might be that moment.
Cry in front of other people, man, because what other people think or their opinion or views on you is none of your business. If we keep that stuff in, it's killing us.
That's true.
Definitely continue to speak that into those misters and within each other.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? As men, we got to create safe spaces for each other and don't judge each other. We cry. If we could do it in private, we could do it in public. How much of student resilience comes from adult modeling rather than programming?
So I think a lot of it comes from examples and role models. I think if students can see individuals who are resilient, and for example, a lot of, they call me Mr. Students at State, and even my middle school students saw that I was going through a doctoral program. And so it was real lived experience. And from what they've told me, that just really encouraged them because it was not an easy journey, but it was very doable with the support systems that I had in my life.
I'm a big fan of when you see different, you believe you could be different.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I think that, again, seeing it has so much impact.
Yeah.
From my perspective, my mom is my forever hero because of what I saw her had to go through, the level of education that she achieved, being a first-generation American. And it's crazy. I always say I have no excuse to feel any kind of way or to not be able to do it because she did it. And so looking at her resilience, that's definitely helped. My wife, she's an OBGYN, seeing the level of resilience that she had to go through to get through her medical education to see where she's at now. I feel like, again, if she can do it, I can do it. Yeah.
I love it. What's one small shift schools can make that will have a big impact on the students' well-being?
There's a big focus right now on social emotional learning. And, a lot of people, especially of people probably over 30, they think it's just a buzzword. And I think to an extent, they're not wrong only because of how it's been implemented. It's not necessarily something that we're just going to say, oh, we're having an SEL day, or we're just going to talk about this for these 10 minutes. Like, no, it has to be a framework shift, a paradigm shift in which we're going to incorporate this consistently with high fidelity. And I think that when you do that, you start to reframe the mind of people that are a little bit older, and then they can start to see that shift and change happen with the students.
And one additional shift that I would add is actually something that I got from Mr. Higgins a few years ago, is that every day does not have to be a teaching day. And the most important thing in teacher education and in life is to develop the relationships that you have with one another. And so some days, hey, how are you feeling even prior to the lesson? And what I find in my experiences, whether it's through speaking engagements, classrooms, my own classroom as a professor, is that many times students are not having a good day. And I find that, and I always tell them, my purpose for this day is to put a smile on your face. And you find that it is very beginning, that when you do that, everyone starts to do that as well.
Whew. What you guys just said validates what it is that we do.
Right.
We're at Versity University. Our flagship program and curriculum is the Unlock Your Greatness, right? Where we have a framework, right? Where we have a curriculum that's essentially a therapeutic process that you're taking individuals through. So you basically put medicine in the candy, right? So you design a curriculum, you break it down to 3 different levels. Each level is designed to go for 10 weeks. Each level has goal setting and accountability as the forefront of the whole thing. So you teach them how to set big picture goals, then you teach them how to set those small incremental goals that'll help them get to that goal, right? Celebrate the small wins, right? But prior to starting the program, they get to know themselves. Start with, self-awareness, to end with leadership, right? We teach them personality type, how to manage conflict, right? How to interact with others using your personality type, right? Then we teach them goal setting, right? How to actually set effective goals. Set the goal, objective, the action step that's gonna help them get there. Yeah. Not only that, a self-evaluation point, because you go set these goals, but are you evaluating yourself? Right. You gotta reflect and check back in. So did you accomplish that goal, yes or no? And what lesson did you learn? Why? Because if you did not accomplish that goal, it's not a fail, right? It's a lesson, it's something to learn from. Right, anytime you fail, you look back, okay, how can I fix it? Let's go back at it again.
I love that.
So failure ain't failure, it's just a lesson. This is how we see change. Because what do resilient kids need most from adults right now?
This is such a deep and profound question. And I would have to say the same thing that I need for me to continue to be resilient, and that's love, that's support, that's grace, understanding, and, just being a part of a village. So sometimes when you do get tired, sometimes you do get weary, you just know not to give up, because you can lean onto others and know that, as Mr. Hagan stated, that, we are our ancestors' greatest dreams. Right, absolutely.
And I think to echo that as well, the biggest thing is love and understanding. And then also you mentioned grace. I heard something from someone a few weeks ago on Instagram, and I'm gonna paraphrase it, but it said, you want to give someone the same level of grace that you hope that you never need. And that resonated with me, because I think, we all have to extend that. Even when we get tired, even when we don't feel like it, you always want to extend that level of grace, of course, within reason, but because you never know when you're going to need it.
And you're going to need it.
And we're going to need it.
That's for sure. Listen, fellas, I definitely appreciate y'all. Y'all heard it best from 2 great men. Like I always say, knowledge is power, but shared knowledge is more powerful. Perseverance is the key to overcoming all adversity, so never give up, no matter what life throws at you. Keep your feet moving, focus on the solution, and let success be the goal. Thank you, fellas. I appreciate y'all. Wow. So I went to South Carolina State University, and I live in Georgia, right? Oh, wow. I live in Atlanta. And you're in Kennesaw, I'm in Smyrna. Wow. So we got a lot to talk about. So it's funny that y'all mention music so much, because that's a passion of mine.
Okay.
Yeah, I was an artist myself, and even now I use music to connect with the young people, right? Because you got to be able to meet them where they are to be able to bridge that gap. Y'all some bright, brilliant young men.
Thank you.
I know, I appreciate y'all. So